Bonjour, French 1 students. This is your teaching video for Lesson 6C, pages 88 to 89 in your textbook. We will begin with a review of what the other material learned in this lesson is. So the first thing in this lesson was subject pronouns. These are typically the start of your sentences. And we have singular subject pronouns and plural. Singular means, remember, we're talking about only one person. Plural means we're talking about two or more people, or things actually too. So the first person singular subject pronoun is je in French, which remember means I. The second person singular subject pronoun in French is tu, which means you. And the third person, there's both il and elle. Il means he or it, and elle means she or it. Remember, in French we have two its because it depends upon whether the object we're replacing is masculine or feminine. If we're replacing a masculine object, then we have to use il to replace it. If we're replacing a feminine object, then we use elle. So for example, if we're talking about une pizza, we would use elle. If we're talking about un soda, we would use il. Remember, with this you, we call it the familiar. You, okay? So again, that has to do with the fact that who you're talking to. So you have to only be talking to one person because it's singular, but this is going to be someone you know well. Someone your own age. Someone younger. A member of your family. Okay, that's who you would use the to you with. Okay, so again, we have je, tu, il, elle. Those are our singular subject pronouns referring to only one person. For the plurals, the first person plural is nous, which means we. The second person plural is vous, which means you. And the third person plural is il pluriel and elle pluriel, both of which mean they. They both also can mean it if we're talking about objects. So again, I use the il for an all male or a mixed group. I use the elle pluriel for an all female group. That's the difference between those. For the vous, this is called the formal you. So this vous is sometimes singular. It can be singular, and then I'm talking to an adult, I don't know, or I'm being polite. Okay. Vous also can be plural. For example, when I talk to you, meaning everybody in the class, I use the vous form. So vous is a little bit different, and that's why we call it the formal you. So these were your subject pronouns. S'il vous plaît, répétez je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle. The next thing to review is the first verb that you've learned, which is the irregular verb être. Remember, we learned this first because it's the most commonly used verb in both French and English. Être means to be. And what you see right here is what we call that conjugation chart. It's how you make sure that your verb is agreeing with your subject. And for être, the forms of the verb, hopefully you can kind of fill this in ahead of me, right? For être, the forms of the verb are je suis, tu es, il or elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, and il and elle pluriel sont. S'il vous plaît, répétez être, je suis, tu es, il est, nous sommes, vous êtes, elles sont. So again, this is the most commonly used verb in French. You're going to have to know it in French 1. You're going to have to know it in French 2. If you choose to take French 3 as an independent study, you'll have to know être then as well. It's the most commonly used verb in French. You also learned about how to ask yes or no questions. And again, when we say yes or no questions, we mean questions that could be answered with simply a yes or a no. And there were 3 ways that we talked about. And we're going to talk first about sort of the best way, which is that we put est-ce que at the beginning of our statement. We do need to remember that que becomes Q-U apostrophe before a vowel or a silent H. And this is, again, by far, this is our best way. This is how you should be writing questions in French. There were 2 other ways also presented. So you can add a question mark at the end and raise your voice. The problem with this is if you don't remember to raise your voice, a person doesn't know that you've asked a question. The third way is you can add n'est-ce pas at the end. Again, this really is mostly used when you've started to say something and you realize that perhaps you're wrong and you want to make it a question. This is the sort of the equivalent of saying right or don't you at the end of your question. So it's really not the best way to ask questions. So these were the 3 ways to ask yes or no questions. Again, the way that you should be using is this est-ce que. That's the best way to ask questions because by hearing est-ce que, you know that it's a question. You also had some new vocabulary on page 85 and 87. So let's take a look at your page 85 vocabulary. S'il vous plaît, répétez où, ici, à, en classe, en vacances, au café, à la maison, là, à, en ville, en France, au restaurant, là-bas, à, au cinéma. On page 87, s'il vous plaît, répétez oui, mais oui, bien sûr, peut-être, non, mais non. So, now that you know how to ask questions, you need to be able to answer them. And because you're new to learning French, I'm going to expect you to always answer questions in complete sentence. Okay? So you will always answer questions in complete sentences. So what's the format of that when you answer affirmatively, right? So our format is going to be, typically we're going to have probably a oui, your subject, your verb, and then I just put a dot, dot, dot for whatever else was in that question. Right? So what I'm talking about here is, for example, if somebody asks, do you live in Paris? Because you're learning French, I want you to answer that with, yes, I live in Paris, rather than just saying yes. Okay, so pretty much the format of affirmative is you're just restating the question just like you do in English. The format in a negative sentence, okay, again, you're probably going to have a no, subject, de, verb, pas, and again, dot, dot, dot for whatever else is in your sentence. Now, this ne becomes an apostrophe before a vowel or a silent H. So notice I'm putting ne in front of the verb and pas goes behind my verb. That's how I make my answer negative in a complete sentence. So one of the things that I have found that students often struggle with is thinking about what the subject of my question is and what the subject of my answer should be. This is not anywhere in your textbook, so you may want to write this down if you struggle with this. Okay? So it would be a weird question, but the best way to think about this is think about it in English, right? If somebody asks a question with I, so may I use the restroom? To answer that in a complete sentence, the answer is yes, you can, right? So this is an I. Your answer is going to be a you. Now, remember in French there are two U's, probably going to be two, but it might be vous if you're talking to an adult. Okay? So, those are pretty weird questions, but two questions are pretty common, right? Do you live in France? No, I do not. So this is because you're talking to one person. It's always going to be an I, which is a je. So if you have a two question asked to you, your answer should be a je answer. Now, think about a boy's name, one boy's name, or he. Does he live in France? No, he does not. So this is going to be a he again. So my subject's going to be il. Right? Does she live in France? Yes or no, she. So again, my subject's going to be an L when I answer that question. Again, new questions are a little bit weird, but do we go to Chippewa Hills High School? Yes, we do, right? So if you ask a question with we, your answer is also probably going to be we because you're included in that group, and so your subject of your question, the answer would be new. Again, here we have that you. And here it depends on whether this you was plural or singular, right? So if this is a you that is singular, so we were using vous to be polite with an adult, right? Do you live in Mount Pleasant? Yes, I do, right? So if it's a singular, I'm going to answer it with an I, and so my question answer would be with a je. If it's a you that's plural, like I'm talking to the whole class, do you attend Chippewa Hills High School? Yes, we do. In which case, we'd use a nous. So with vous, you have to be a little bit careful because is the vous being used in that formal sense and talking to an adult and just one person, or is vous being used in a plural sense, and so we need to answer it with a we. Right? This is they. Do they go to Chippewa Hills? Yes, they do. So this would be an il pluriel answer as well. And the same thing with the L pluriel, right? They, we answer with they, so it would be L. So again, I just kind of go over this because in the past I've had students who've struggled with, here's the subject of my question, what subject should I use in my answer? So here's a little spot that you can write down and have some notes, and it can help you figure that out. So we want to look at 2 examples here. We're going to answer these both affirmatively and negatively. So, est-ce que vous êtes en classe? Okay. Which is asking, are you in class? Let's first assume that we're responding to this in a plural way. Right? So if I answer yes, then it's going to be we, nous, sommes en classe. If I answer this no, nous ne sommes pas en classe. So again, notice my ne and my pas went around my verb, which was sommes. Now, if I want to talk about this in a singular sense, like I'm being polite and I'm talking to one adult, then it would be oui, je suis en classe, if that person is in class, or no, je ne suis pas en classe. Okay, so with vous, you have to be a little bit careful about who we're talking to. Okay. All right, est-ce qu'elle est en vacances? Notice I did the QU apostrophe because L starts with a vowel. So I'm asking, is she on vacation? So if she is on vacation, then it would be oui, elle est en vacances. If she's not on vacation, then it would be no, elle n'est pas en vacances. Again, I did the N apostrophe because A starts with a vowel. So let's take a look at this the way it's presented to you in your textbook. À la page 428. Compare the affirmative and negative sentences below. Je suis américain. Je ne suis pas français. Nous sommes en classe. Nous ne sommes pas en vacances. Claire est là-bas. Elle n'est pas ici. Tu es d'accord avec moi? Tu n'es pas d'accord avec Marc. Right? So I am American, and notice it's a male saying that because there's no E on American. I am not French. We are in class. We are not on vacation. Claire is over there. She is not here. You agree with me? You don't agree with Mark. The negative sentences are formed as follows. Subject, ne, verb, pas. Eric et Anne ne sont pas là. And if our verb starts with a vowel sound, right? Again, by vowel sound we mean, okay, a vowel or a silent H. Then it becomes the N apostrophe. Michel n'est pas avec moi. So Eric and Anne are not there. Michel is not with me. Nous sommes en ville. Nous ne sommes pas à la maison. S'il vous plaît, répétez ne, pas. Nous ne sommes pas à la maison. So let's take a look at exercise 7. No, answer the following questions negatively. So all of these are going to be answered negatively. So the example is, est-ce que tu es français? No, je ne suis pas français. So these are all two questions. So your answers are always going to be je. These all use a. So your verb is always going to be suis. And they're all negative. So I'm going to have a ne and a pas around my verb suis. So again, I'd like you to answer these out loud, and then you can listen for my response. Numéro 1. Est-ce que tu es Canadien? Non, je ne suis pas Canadien. 2. Est-ce que tu es à Québec? Non, je ne suis pas à Québec. 3. Est-ce que tu es à la maison? Non, je ne suis pas à la maison. Numéro 4. Est-ce que tu es au café? Non, je ne suis pas au café. 5. Est-ce que tu es en vacances? Non, je ne suis pas en vacances. 6. Est-ce que tu es au cinéma? Non, je ne suis pas au cinéma. Exercice 8. D'accord. It is raining. Francois suggests to his friends that they go to the movies. Say who agrees and who does not using the expression être d'accord. So, because we have a frowning face here, we say Philippe n'est pas d'accord. Because we have a smiling face, we have Elan est d'accord. So just remember again, our forms of être are je suis, tu es, il or elle or one person's name, a, nous sommes, vous êtes, and il and elle pluriel sont. And if I'm going to make these negative, my ne's go here, my pas go here, my ne's go here, my pas go here. Okay, so d'accord stays the same every time. So all of your sentences will end with d'accord. So again, I'd like you to try this one out loud. So number 1, we have nous. Nous sommes d'accord. 2. Je. Je suis d'accord. 3. Tu. Tu n'es pas d'accord. 4. Vous. Vous n'êtes pas d'accord. 5. Patrick et Marc. Patrick et Marc sont d'accord. Numéro 6. Claire et Stéphanie. Claire et Stéphanie ne sont pas d'accord. Numéro 7. Ma copine. Ma copine est d'accord. Numéro 8. Mon frère. Mon frère n'est pas d'accord. So next you see some mots utiles, some useful words. So we're going to go down saying these. Actually, we'll say a word twice, and then we're going to do the sentences to the right. S'il vous plaît, répétez à. À. Je suis à la maison à 10 heures. Nous sommes à Paris. 2. Vous êtes de San Francisco. Voici une photo de Paris. A. Anne et Sophie sont en vacances. Où. Qui est-ce? Juliette ou Sophie? Avec. Philippe est avec Pauline. Pour. Pour. Philippe est avec Pauline. Avec. 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 Philippe est avec Pauline. Pour. Pour. Philippe est avec Pauline. Avec. 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 Philippe est avec pour. Je veux travailler pour Monsieur Martin. Mais. Je ne suis pas français, mais j'aime parler français. And notice the little note that the de becomes a D apostrophe before a vowel sound. Si vous plaît, répétez. Patrick est de Lyon. François est d'Annecy. Right, working through the translation of these, the a sentences. I am at home at 10 o'clock. We are in Paris. You are from San Francisco. Here is a picture of Paris. Anne and Sophie are on vacation. Who is it? Juliet or Sophie? Philip is with Pauline. I want to work for Mr. Martin. I am not French, but I like to speak French. Patrick is from Lyon. François is from Annecy. So let's take a look at exercise 9, le mot juste. Complete each sentence with the word in parentheses that fits logically. So I'd like you to read the second sentence with the correct word in the blank. Numéro 1, Monsieur Moreau est en France. Aujourd'hui, il est à Lyon. 2. Martine est canadienne. Elle est de Montréal. 3. Florence n'est pas ici. Elle est avec Jean-Claude. Numéro 4. Lia et Paul sont en ville. Numéro 5. Jean-Pierre n'est pas à la maison. Il est au café ou au cinéma. 6. J'aime jouer au tennis, mais je ne veux pas jouer avec toi. Et 7. Je travaille pour mon père. 10. Être ou ne pas être. We cannot be in different places at the same time. Express this according to the model. So, Aline est en ville. So, if Aline is in town, then she can't be here. So, Aline n'est pas ici. So, for all of these, they're going to be negative. So, they're all going to have a ne, verb, pas. For the subject, you're going to use the same subject of in your sentence as the subject in the example. Okay? And you're going to change what's in the sentence here to what's in parentheses. So basically, you're making this, you're adding a ne and a pas. So go ahead and try these. Number 1, we have Frédéric est là-bas. Frédéric n'est pas à la maison. 2. Nous sommes en classe. Nous ne sommes pas au restaurant. 3. Tu es à Nice. Tu n'es pas à Tours. Numéro 4. Vous êtes au café. Vous n'êtes pas au cinéma. 5. Jean est avec Sylvie. Jean n'est pas avec Julie. 6. Juliette et Sophie sont avec Eric. Juliette et Sophie ne sont pas avec Marc. Pronunciation la voyelle. The letter A alone always represents the sound A, as in the English word a. It never has the sound A as in the English words like class, date, or cinema. S'il vous plaît, répétez. Chat, ça va, a, la, là-bas, avec, ami, voilà, classe, café, salade, dame, date, madame, Canada. On et au Canada avec Madame Laval. So your homework is exercise 9 and 10. In exercise 9, we did this one out loud. On your paper, you just need to write the word that goes in the blank. So number 1, Monsieur Moreau est en France. So do I want to say today he is in Lyon or today he is from Lyon or of Lyon? So for number 1, it should be a. So all you have to type is what goes in the blank for exercise 9. Exercise 10, we also did this one out loud. Remember these, you were all making negative and you were changing what was in the sentence. So remember, I'm going to change là-bas to à la maison and I'm going to make this negative. Okay, and you're going to write out those sentences. So for number 1, you would write Frédéric. Or if you wanted to save yourself a little writing, right, you could say il. Okay. N'est pas à la maison. So you're going to write out those sentences for the 6 of them. Au revoir. À demain.